Yo, what's up, guys? Milan and Como tie 1-1 apiece, splitting points, guys. Milan dropping 2 points today. Now, an unfortunate tie today, guys. One mistake today by Mike Maignan unfortunately cost Milan all 3 points today, guys. But it obviously wasn't the best 90 minutes performance today by Milan. Obviously, I felt that the second half was way better than the first half. Milan did have one really good opportunity in the first half after giving up that goal to Como, of course, guys. Unfortunately, with that bad pass by Mike Maignan, Milan did not start off the game horribly, but they didn't start off the game amazing. Como are a really high possession team, a really attacking team, like to push up the field. Fabregas is obviously a manager that likes to push his team up the field, and we saw Como doing that early on. We obviously saw some changes in the 11 today. We saw Serie, Ricci, and Matchday in the midfield today. First time we've seen that all season. We saw De Winter replacing Gabbia in the defense, of course. And then we heard Ruben Loftus-Cheek, ironically enough, sustained an injury before the game. So Christopher Nkunku will be playing up top with Rafael. So as we saw, wasn't the best start to the game. The game was really slow paced for Milan, sitting back again, letting Como dominate possession at times in the first half. Milan didn't really attack much. And these are the same things that I've been saying this past season, of course, with Milan. A lot of frustrating things with this team, not playing a full 90 minutes. Obviously, sitting back too much, absorbing pressure at times, not attacking, not playing with fluidity at all, not moving the ball quick enough, not moving up the field, not making the right runs. There's a lot of frustrating things that Milan have done this past season, especially in the first half at times in the games, even sometimes in the second half. But we've seen it a lot more this year in the first half, as we saw again today in this game. Again, Milan just sitting back, and then as we saw in the 31st minute, Maignan gets the ball, tries to make a pass to Serie, unfortunately misplaces that pass to the worst player on the field to misplace it too, and that's Nico Paz, of course. He slots it home between his legs to make it 1-0 for Como, and it's a back-breaking mistake by Mike Maignan. I think we could all agree. We saw his reaction, to go down 1-0 like that. Como weren't even doing that much. They were just dominating possession, moving the ball around, but they weren't really threatening goal very much. But at the same time, Milan weren't doing very much. That goal there is just a horrendous goal to give up by Mike Maignan, but obviously Mike Maignan has saved us a bunch of times this year, bailed us out so many times. I'm not going to harp on it too much, but it's a really horrendous mistake by Mike Maignan, and unfortunately cost Milan all 3 points today in this game today. Then we saw Victor Mori have an incredible chance to tie it up right away with that volley, with that great cross in. But unfortunately, as we saw, they make the save, Como, of course. But then after Leao had a chance on that, Milan were starting to push a little bit. But unfortunately, we're not able to link up, not able to get a really threatening chance on that other than the Tomori opportunity there. Just some frustrating moments again in that first half. A lackluster first half, to go down 1-0 the way they did. Really frustrating first half, to say the least, guys. Then we obviously saw Gabbia come into the game for Pavlovic, of course, and then as we saw, Milan started to push a little bit more, started a little bit more hunger in the second half, start to win a little bit more 50-50 balls. Then we saw Serie put in an incredible chip ball to Rafael for the first goal. And if you guys remember the first half, Serie did that once, put in a great ball in, to lead for a chance from Milan, and then he does it again, put in a great ball to Leao, who obviously Leao, guys, is obviously dealing with a major injury here, playing on one leg basically, is able to time his run perfectly. And then as we saw Como's keeper rush out of his net, a little bit too early, I felt a little bit too premature. And Leao with that beautiful chip, just to get it under the bar, Leao, like I mentioned just now, him being injured, not being 100%, I don't expect him to be 100% for the rest of the season, guys. But your best players, even when they're not 100%, they come up big when you need them to most. And Rafael comes up massive again for this club, scoring a massive goal for Milan to tie it up at 1-1. Just a massive goal by Leao. Obviously was not doing much in this game. You could see it in his stride, the way he's running, running gingerly, just not making those runs that we know he can make. He had one opportunity where he had a chance to go one-on-one, but his pace let him down because he's dealing with that growing / pubalgia injury. It's just really sickening to see Leao running the way he is, not being 100%. Even Pulisic, him not being healthy this year and him not being 100%, him coming in for about 10 minutes in this game today, really not doing very much. But Leao coming up big today for Milan again. As we saw him, he came out of the game later on. Milan were just really pushing after Leao had tied it up for them, winning all the 50-50 balls like I mentioned, having more chances on it. Leao hit a post, but he was offside. There were some other chances as well in this game, but unfortunately, guys, when you have guys like Leao and Pulisic who impact your attack so much but cannot stay healthy, what do you expect is going to happen? Games like this are going to happen. And as we saw, Fulkrug came into the game. He didn't do very much. Didn't time his runs good enough. Didn't find any open space. Fofana had a great opportunity to head the ball in, but unfortunately he has no technical ability, so he heads it over the net there. Bartoszagi did put in a few crosses. Unfortunately, couldn't get to anyone. There was ample opportunities for Milan to take this lead. They showed the hunger. Salamakers came into the game after being absent the last few games. He showed some great energy and hunger, had some great runs there. Unfortunately, he's lucky he's lucky that he did not get a second yellow card there. At the end of the game there, got a yellow card when Como were countering. Then he committed another foul. So Alexis is lucky Milan were not down a man short for the last 7 minutes of the game there, guys. But unfortunately, guys, Milan squandered chances. Didn't do enough in the first half. Didn't bury any chances in the second half. Even as well on corner kicks and set pieces, just not good enough. The timing of the run, not getting enough men in the box. At the end of the game, that was a bit frustrating as well. We saw Allegri get a red card. He's probably not going to manage the next game, I think. I'm pretty sure he got the red card. There was some bickering going on the touchline there with Salamakers as well. So it was a bit of a feisty game, a bit of a rigid game. But Milan had chances, guys. There were some ample opportunities for Milan to win this game, and they just couldn't bury that. And like I said, when you don't have guys healthy in the attack, you're missing Rabiot as well, who's suspended. This game here, you expected Milan to drop points. They almost came away with the win if it wasn't for the mistake that Mike Maignan made. But it's an unfortunate situation, guys. Milan dropped 2 more points. Inter's got a 7-point lead now at the top of the table, 7 or 8 point lead at the top of the table. Now, it is going to be an extremely difficult run of games for Milan if they want any possibility of trying to catch for the title, guys. You got to win the derby. You can't lose any more games till the derby. You can't drop any more points. Inter has just been really solid this year in Serie, obviously, barring the Juventus game after the disaster that happened with La Penna and everything else. Don't get me started on that. Inter did lose to Bodo Glimt today, so that was interesting to see. But in Serie, they've been lights out. They've been on fire, and they have healthy strikers. When you got 4 healthy strikers like Boni, Esposito, Thuram, Lotero, that has been the difference, if you guys ask me, when it comes to the Scudetto race right now, is Inter have been healthier. Even though they're playing in 3 competitions, and that's another frustrating thing, that we're only playing once a bloody week. We're out of the Coppa Italia. Obviously the Super Cup didn't work out too well for us. And to see Milan struggling like this, with the health of Leao and Pulisic is very frustrating to say the least. But we got some solid performances today by Coney De Winter, who has been solid the last 4 to 5 games for Milan. Jashari was fantastic today. I think he's overtaken Ricci in the pecking order now after Ricci did not have a very good game today, guys. So that's another guy that I feel has not taken advantage of the opportunities that have been given to him in Samuel Ricci. So I thought Jashari took advantage a little bit more than he did today. So I expect when Rabiot does get back, I would love to see a midfield 3 of Rabiot, Modric, and Jashari. That has a lot of technique, a lot of dynamism. Just a quality midfield, if you ask me, instead of having a guy like Fofana or Loftus-Cheek there who are both unreliable, and obviously Cheek can't stay healthy. Fofana is unreliable technically and the decisions he makes, so that's frustrating to say the least. Leao wasn't the greatest today, but he ended up bailing out Milan with that goal, so good on Rafa. Pulisic didn't do much. Fulkrug didn't do much. And Nkunku, last couple games, been very frustrating to say the least. Has not been good enough, been invisible. Don't like him in a 2-striker formation, to say the least, guys. I like him on the wings or behind the striker. That's where I feel that Christopher Nkunku also thrives his most. And then another guy who I think thrived today was Jashari, playing in the number 8 role with Modric in the middle. Play Jashari and Rabiot when he gets back on the sides of Modric. That's where I think Arden Jashari thrives the most. He can push up field. He can put in some great passes. Has a lethal left foot. He can make a shot or two. So I think Jashari should play as a number 8 instead of a number 6, where Allegri has played him instead of Modric at times when he's given Modric a break. So Tomori as well looked a bit shaky today. Pavlovic wasn't amazing today. That's why he came out today. Magnan obviously had the howler today, guys. You know, some decent performances today. Salamakers was good as well. Bartosagi wasn't bad today either. Wasn't a horrendous game today, but unfortunately, guys, dropped points again today. 9th tie of the season for Milan. Just so many ties that you could look back on the season and say to yourself, we should have won this game, should have won that game. Even today, we could have easily won today, you know, for a couple of easy decisions, you know, that we could have obviously taken it back. But that's Calcio, guys. An unfortunate tie today. Unfortunate drop points today. Inter just continue to get that gap for the Scudetto. Another thing is, though, at least we are getting a gap for Champions League, which is good. Another point gained on Juve. So that is great as well, guys. Focusing on making top 4. But obviously, we want to focus on trying to win the title. But it is going to be very hard to say the least, guys. But this was another game here where you say to yourself, you know, unfortunately, health did have a factor in this game today. Missing a couple guys, especially Rabiot, did hurt this team today. But unfortunately, drop points from Milan today, guys. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this game today, guys. If you like this video, subscribe if you guys want to see more content. Forza Milan sempre, as always, guys. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Rocco Unfiltered. Ciao, guys.